In today's 2-minute top tip for our 30-day challenge, I'm going to take you through why squats, lunges and deadlifts are absolutely essential if you have osteoarthritis. And if that does sound scary, then you are going to have to keep watching until the very end of the video, as I'm going to be talking about why they're so important and how you can easily achieve doing them, starting right now. Now, when I do suggest these types of exercises for patients with osteoarthritis, I often get looked at like I'm a bit crazy, and maybe I am, but I'm definitely right about these exercises. Now, the whole thing is all about context and how we perceive different activities. We know that our thoughts, our feelings, our mood and perception about things has a massive impact on how and whether we're going to be able to complete them or not. So if we take the word squat, for example, for many of us, it paints this perception of somebody doing a very deep movement with a lot of bend in the knee and the hip, potentially in a gym environment and maybe with some external load on their back. Now, for somebody with hip or knee osteoarthritis, that is, and understandably, a very scary thought. But if we change the narrative slightly and say that essentially a squat is a very similar movement to getting out of a chair, then the context of that exercise or movement changes slightly. If you are somebody that has found getting out of a chair difficult because of some hip or knee or maybe some back pain, then actually that's probably something that we need to try and practice. You may have found that you've started to compensate and use your arms to push yourself out of the chair to try and offload your leg. Now, doing that for a prolonged period of time is just going to make the affected joint more sensitive, a bit stiffer, a bit weaker, and probably more painful over time. The end result is likely to be that you become worse at doing that movement and you compensate more. So the only way that we can improve that getting out of a chair movement is if we practice it to a level or degree that you feel safe or comfortable with. And that movement pattern is very similar to a squat. So if we change the wording slightly and say we're going to do a get out of the chair or we're going to do a sit to stand, the context and the perception of threat or how harmful or difficult that might be becomes less, and essentially, hopefully, the exercise will become easier to do. Now, maybe by yourself, but definitely with the help of a therapist, you will be able to find a level of regression that is appropriate for your level of ability with a squat or sit to stand. It might be that you start off with a chair in front of you that you can hold on to and a chair behind you that you can sit down on and start off with just 50% of the movement. And that would be absolutely fine to begin with. Once you've done that for a few weeks, you can then progress to working through more movement and maybe with less support. And the same applies to the lunge and the deadlift. Deadlift in particular is a terrible name, but it's all about context. If you want to be able to get off the floor safely, you really need to be able to do a lunge type movement. If you want to be able to bend over and pick something up, you need to be able to do a deadlift. With a deadlift, it might be that you start off doing it from a seated position and bend and lift. It might be that with a lunge type movement, you have support either side of you whilst doing 50% of the range. So I promise you, if we dampen down the sense of threat or difficulty with these exercises, turn them into functional movement patterns that you need to be able to be better at day to day to improve your quality of life and ease of life, there will be a level of regression that you can start from and then subsequently progress. There are going to be videos on the channel going through each of these 3 movement patterns with regressions and progressions, and I'll pop a link to them in the description below when they're up and ready. If, like me, you enjoy spreading osteoarthritis positivity and you'd like to get your hands on one of these arthritis inspiration t-shirts, then you can find a link to the shop in the description below the video. Question of the day. Are you worried or scared about squatting? Let me know in the comment section below. If you have found today's video useful, then please consider giving me a thumbs up. It really helps. And if you are new to the channel and you'd like to follow more of our osteoarthritis help, subscribe to the channel so you get notified every time I release a new video. Whilst you're doing that, I'll see you in the next one.